Board meeting. Today's Monday, January 27th. I'm Sabrina Dunlap, and we have Ken Trom, Stephen Whitley, Thomas Lapoma, and I don't think Jeff Donahoe is joining us tonight. So first up is points of pride.
Sure, I have a couple. Thank you to the clerk's office who are taking care of all the signups for elections. They are going very well. And as a courtesy, they do it for the school also. So that's good. The CIP committee, which I'll give a report on, finished their work. They worked really hard this year. And so I want to thank them for the work they've done. And especially buildings and grounds. They've been very busy dealing with keeping buildings warm during some of those really cold days, and everything is in good shape at this point. But the Wednesday morning, the Slusher Center was 45 degrees, and that's a little colder than normal. So Rotary was there, and the hot air there helped warm that up. But other than that,
speaking for yourself, right?
I was.
All right.
I think I just want to follow up on Neil's comments that I think the CIP committee has done a great job, certainly this year particularly. And I also just like to thank everybody who signed up for elective office. It's my understanding we already have enough that it's going to be competitive elections for select board, budget committee, and school board.
Yeah, and that's open until Friday, right?
Yeah.
Yes. So Monday through Thursday, 8 to 5, Friday, 8 to noon, and 3 to 5.
Okay.
By statute, the clerk's office has to be open 3 to 5 on Friday.
Okay. All right. We'll move on to administrative. First up is approval of the consent agenda.
Sure. I'll move we approve the consent agenda of January 27, 2024.
Second.
All right. All those in favor? Aye. Okay.
Jeff is on.
Oh. All right. Should we do the minutes so we don't have to do a roll call vote? Or we can vote to let him in. Does anyone want to do that?
I'll make a motion that we allow Jeff to the meeting.
I'll second.
Okay.
Can you hear me?
We have to do a roll call vote to vote him in. Okay.
Yes.
Stephen?
Yes.
Yes.
I mean, yes. Thomas?
Yes.
All right, Jeff, you're in.
Hot damn, good for me.
Lucky you. All right.
I'll be muted for the most part.
Okay.
Understandable.
You're on just approval of the public meeting minutes from January 13th, 2025.
So moved.
I'll second.
Any discussion, edits? All right. Stephen?
Yes.
Ken?
Yes.
I'm a yes. Thomas?
Yes.
And Jeff?
Yes.
All right. So we have two public appointments. The first one is 5:30, the UNH Engineer Student Capstone Project presentation. Okay. Hi.
I'm Anna Wells, Economic Development Director for Hopkinton, just for people online. And first of all, thank you all so much for making time for this presentation during a busy time. Squeezing it in between kind of finalizing budgets and then getting into town meeting stuff. I'm also joined by Chuck Gregory. He's a resident in town. He is a civil engineer.
I am.
And said with authority. I just wanted to give a little bit of background on what brought us to today. One of our committee members became aware of this capstone project that all engineering students at UNH have to do in their senior year. The way that works is municipalities or private firms pitch projects to the students and they choose which they'd like to work on. So there's a whole range of projects. They're not all transportation based, right? So there's
sanitary sewer projects, treatment plant facilities, bridges.
but all civil and environmental engineering. So, I feel very fortunate that our project, got chosen because there were a lot of pitches and I don't think all of them got chosen, right? So, I'm really grateful for that. And what we pitched them, was what I think is one of the toughest nuts to crack from a transportation safety, viability standpoint, which is redesigns for the intersection in front of the fire station. And this fits in with what the Economic Development Committee has been looking at in terms of improving the safety of not only motorists in Kentucky Village, but especially how we get around outside of cars. So walking, biking, that kind of thing. And as we all know, it's a busy intersection. It's a little confusing as they will go through. So we've been working together. The pitch happened back in August, and so it's a full year project. They spent the fall kind of doing this initial analysis, which you'll see, and then they can talk about what they're planning to do this spring to kind of round out the project. This is all being done at no charge to Hopkinton. There's minimal input from me. I have not had to do much because these guys have been awesome. And Chuck is the project advisor as a resident and a professional in the field. So he's really also been awesome. Huge thanks to you, Chuck, for being part of the project and stepping up to do that. We've had meetings one meeting down at his office in Bedford as well. So with that, Chuck, if there's anything else you want to add, please do, and then we'll get started with the.
I would just like to thank you for bringing this to my attention, and it's been my honor to help you guys bring this along and share some general engineering knowledge and also my knowledge of, the general lay of the land, my experience with the intersection. So it's been a lot of fun so far, and looking forward to seeing how it all ends up in February. I think with that, I can introduce them, right?
Sure.
All right. So this is our UNH capstone team. We're missing Will, but we're lucky enough to have Tyler Beresford here, Cole Cronin, and David Fisk. And David, I do believe you're familiar with the intersection as well.
This is my father, also David Fisk. We've lived here since 1997. Yes, 97. Yeah, in Kentucky. Yeah.
We'll have you guys come up.
Yep.
Let's be brief so that they can pick you up on.
Where's yours?
All right. Good evening, everyone. Thank you for the fantastic introduction. So as they said, the three of us are senior civil engineering students. One of our team members, Will, was unable to make it tonight, so we're picking up the slack for him with the presentation.
He decided to go skiing.
The one thing I would like to just point out before we get this started is none of this work is ever meant to go to the bidding or like contract phase. This is purely a thought experiment for us to kind of work through a real world example of a civil engineering problem. And with that, I'd like to breeze through our PowerPoint. So just brief introduction for all of us. I'm Tyler, I'm the project manager, and I am from Southern New York.
I'm Cole Cronin. I'm from Marshfield, Massachusetts.
David Fisk from New Hampshire.
And last but not least, we have Will, who is also from Massachusetts. As you guys just met, Anna and Chuck are our two sponsors for this group. In addition to them, we have one of our professors, Tony Punton, who is also local to the area, as our faculty advisor for this project. So a brief background. We're in Merrimack County, New Hampshire, the town of Hopkinton, village of Kentucky, population of 6,000 as of 2022. So this is the project location. It is a three-way intersection of Kearsarge Avenue, Pine Street, and New Hampshire Route 103, circled in the orange there. So as I said, this is an existing intersection. Kentucky is one of the economic and community centers of the town of Hopkinton. So this is a very busy intersection, as you can imagine. Key access point for a lot of residences, the fairgrounds, schools, a lot of local businesses, and of course, the firehouse is directly adjacent to the intersection. Additionally, the covered railroad bridge directly adjacent to this intersection is one of the oldest I think it is the oldest remaining railroad bridge in the US. So that is a point of focus for us in this project. Here's an overhead aerial view of the project's location, showing the 3 intersecting streets, and with a little guide in the bottom right showing you about where you're looking down the intersection. So here's one view, and here's another street level view. This does a better job of highlighting some of the deficiencies that we are looking to address. There's poor markings, there's poor signage. There's a lack of sidewalk infrastructure in the intersection, which is especially important with the rail trail cutting right through this intersection. The one thing I do want to point out that this image highlights is the landscaped focal point of the intersection that has been a focus of our project and something that we are going to carry through the design phase. Another aerial view showing a little bit more of the confusing layout of the intersection. As you can see, there's a little bit of confusion with the right-of-way in terms of who yields to who and who has the right-of-way through the intersection, because it's a unique layout. So this purpose statement was kind of developed by us as a way to guide our project through the year we'll be working on this. It's to design a new intersection, improve user safety, create a visual focal point for the community, and add mobility for all pedestrian and cyclist users. Now, to expand on that a little bit, the next 3 slides I'll kind of expand on the purpose statement. So we want a comprehensive design that includes an intersection, a landscaped sidewalk network, a focal point right in the middle of the intersection to kind of keep that community feel. We want to improve upon the existing green space. Obviously, cost and schedule are a factor, as with any municipal project. And the main question we kept coming back to is, what is the best type of intersection for this layout? So again, just kind of expanding on some of the main points. We've focused on safety, constructability, cost, green space, things like that. And these are the bullet points that really help us kind of evaluate the various intersection options that we looked into and help guide us through the design process.
Once we had all those considerations, we came up with standards that we wanted to use throughout all our different designs to keep that sort of consistency. We decided we wanted to keep the speed limit 30 miles per hour, which is the current speed limit through there now. We want to make sure that it was accommodating to all WB62 vehicles, which includes fire trucks from the nearby fire station or school buses from the nearby school. We also decided on a lane width of 12 feet, a sidewalk width of 5 feet, and a shoulder width of 1 to 4 feet, really depending on if there's a curb or not. Then we had to come up with our options that we wanted to use. We first asked ourselves what the issues were with the existing configuration, what needs to be solved. Then we decided to come up with what our options were. A stop yield, which is the existing one there now, was our first option. Then we decided to do a traffic light controlled option, which really didn't make it past the conceptual design phase since it just wasn't really practical and wasn't warranted. And then we decided to do roundabout. And then once we had all our options, we wanted to score them.
So we came up with a decision matrix for all of our different alignments that we came up with. So the first thing would be we needed a baseline. So we used what the existing conditions were at the time. The intersection functions currently as it does right now. So we used that. This is where our scores came out. So no build at a 32, our roundabout options 42, 43, realignment A and B at 36 and 38. So I believe that the highest score is correct.
Yep.
The realignment.
What I'd like to point out here too is the existing no build scored the worst, right? So if we're going to design a whole new intersection, it scores worse than the existing layout. That's of no use to any of us. It's just a waste of time and money. What we did find interesting in this was that both roundabouts that we developed, and we're going to go through in the next slides, both scored very well, significantly better than existing and the 2 realignment options that we came up with. So that was a key tell very early on for us in this process.
So here was the no build again, where we chose our baseline for the matrix. Here's our first realignment option where we eliminated the access from, Kearsarge in front of the fire station there. So Pine Street would have direct access all the way to 103, and there would be a stopped intersection there. And it would limit Kearsarge Ave from Pine Street access there. But this only increased the green space area. It did help increase access for the fire station out onto 103. And also with this option where we started was with Dimitri's or Riverside Pizza now. We limited the access here, if you can see on the lower right-hand corner where the covered bridge is highlighted. So we would eliminate the access entry or exit point to Riverside. Oh, wow. To the entrance there. And that would also, and then adding a crosswalk over towards the fire station and adding or increasing the sidewalk, better mobility to pedestrian traffic from the covered bridge area there for the rail trail access and across. But this quickly, when we came up with this idea that the left-hand turn, if you're heading west onto Pine Street, that the stop block was really far out. So you're going to limit the truck traffic from making that left-hand turn and cutting off traffic. This does still allow access to Riverside Pizza, Riverside Pizza, and the house and the farm access that is there. But it really didn't take care of a lot of the full spectrum of things that we were looking for. So our next option was to use the existing Pine Street stop intersection and Kearsarge and increase the green space, but we're going to add a traffic island in the middle there to help realign Pine Street to more of 90 degrees to 103, which would help allow the left-hand turning traffic. And this still allowed the access to the fire station and access to the house and farm.
The next two options are roundabouts. This is the roundabout option A. This is the roundabout option B. For the roundabout option A, we chose to do an inscribed diameter of 140 feet, which is slightly more than the one of roundabout B. This scored had a matrix score of 42. In these conceptual sketches, we didn't tie in the existing driveways, but for like the farm road and the house, we plan on giving it its own private leg directly into the roundabout. And for the fire station, it'll have its own private leg where only they can use that.
And if I can interrupt for a second, scribe diameter is curb to curb across the intersection. And in roundabout design, the diameter controls a lot of factors. It's a controlling factor. So through the different designs, we considered a variety of different inscribed diameters. That's the main kind of toggle we could play with.
Yeah, we really just narrowed it down to these two. For this roundabout, there were some advantages and some disadvantages. Some advantages of turning into a roundabout is it improves overall safety of this intersection. It allows for a constant traffic flow throughout. And it also increases that center island green space from about 2,800 square feet to about 5,000. And some of the disadvantages were that this does have a high initial cost. It cuts into some of the abutter properties. And there is some difficulty for the fire station to head north or west. For the option B roundabout, this one had an inscribed diameter of 130, so that 10 feet less, and scored 1 point higher on our matrix score, which was the highest. And there's some of the differences for this roundabout are that there's a smaller green space of 3,200 or 3,400 about, and it's less intrusive as it cuts less into the abutter properties. It improves the safety of the roundabout and allows for that constant steady flow also. And some of the disadvantages are the high initial costs, fire truck exit, and it's really in a difficult location.
So using our matrix, as we presented before, we found that our roundabout B option scored the best by only a point, but still our best. With that information in mind, we have decided to carry through a design with a kind of hybrid of the two roundabout options using some of the better features of both. The key thing that Cole touched on with the roundabouts is that we have to prioritize direct access into the circle from both the fire station and from the existing farm road and residence just to the north of Riverside Pizza. That has been an issue that has come up in every design we kind of played with and developed. Ultimately, it will have direct access for both the fire station and the farm road. Where or what that looks like is to be determined, but that's part of our work for this upcoming semester. So the future work and some of the deliverables that we're going to produce, I included a screenshot of our design report that we submitted at the end of last semester, just kind of going over all the work we've done. I think it ended up being 40-something pages with some very nice graphics and stuff that we produced for our class. We're going to carry through a complete design of the roundabout option for the intersection. We're going to produce a final design report. So expanding on our preliminary design report, a full cost estimate for construction of the intersection, a construction schedule, a traffic control plan, and a drainage plan for the stormwater network that will serve the intersection. Any questions? I'm sure there's a lot of information to absorb.
Sure, certainly one of the roads is a state road.
Yes.
So have you talked to the state, bounced your ideas off them?
Not yet. A lot of these preliminary designs were more for research for us to guide ourselves for this semester. This spring semester is when a lot of that design work actually happens. A lot of what we did in the fall was just research. We did a site visit with Chuck and Anna very early on. Our faculty advisor, Professor Punton, actually works for the DOT part-time. So a lot of that information is going to be worked out with him because he's our best contact for that.
You've done a great job so far.
Thank you.
Can you go to the recommendation slide again? Okay, A's location with B's inscribed diameter. So can you talk a little more about what that would be?
So as you can see between, I think it's this slide. So you can kind of see where the center of the roundabout is for A, and then for B, it's shifted a little bit to the southwest. We liked the location for A.
Yeah, kind of more closer to the apartments in TDS compared to the roundabout option B, just because it kind of gives you more room for that fire station to allow it to get into the roundabout and not have it like take any extra time.
The other design consideration for roundabouts is what's called the fastest path, right? So you don't want someone to be able to just drive directly through the circle and bypass the yield condition that exists there. As you can see, we've kind of twisted the entrances and exits into the roundabouts and out of the roundabout to kind of force drivers to slow down and respect the circle and not just buzz right through at 50 miles an hour. However, you can go too far with that. And as you can see on the northeast corner of this intersection, it's a bit severe and it would be difficult for a tractor trailer or a larger vehicle to negotiate that sort of turn. So we have decided that this sized roundabout in this location is going to give us the most freedom and the easiest access for vehicles through the intersection.
And when you say size, you mean that diameter?
That inscribed diameter directly across the circle. That governs a lot of the design choices.
And if you do the smaller diameter, but in the A location, are we gonna encroach into abutting private property at all? Or with the smaller size, have you sort of avoided that?
So that's the positive about the smaller size is it reduces the impact on the apartment building to the north side, TDS on the left-hand corner there. By shrinking that circle by another 10 feet, it's a little bit more compact and reduces the impact you have on those properties.
But there is still some encroachment?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, just to echo Ken's point, this is super impressive and
Thank
really
you.
appreciate you guys doing all this work. So thank you.
Thank you.
How did you find this spot?
So at the start of the semester for our capstone class, we were presented, I think it was 30 different projects. Like they said, all different types. There was bridges and environmental science projects. And we ended up choosing this one randomly and all came together as a team and kind of ran with it. It's been very fun, so very rewarding so far.
Nice work.
Each individually select this project.
Got it. Okay,
Yes.
nice. Any more questions?
No, this is really cool. Thank you so much. I'm excited to see how it moves forward.
Thank you.
Yeah. So it's a year-long project?
Yes, so this semester is much more design focused. Like I said, the goal at the end of the semester is to have a completed design, budget, all that. This culminates with a presentation at the undergraduate research conference that UNH hosts in April. And then a presentation to a board of professors and professional engineers that we get a grade on.
Oh,
So yes, lots of work to be done.
Are you guys gonna come back here with the final?
I'd love to. Yeah, it's a lot is going to change this semester.
No, I would love to see where you guys end up at the end of the process. So
Yeah.
I would totally be in favor of having you back.
Sure. Sounds great. I'm sure Anna can help us arrange.
she knows how to find us. All right, well, thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Question, I think it'd be helpful for a young man. Can you explain what the process would be for a project like this to be undertaken? I know,
Question.
you know, the wherewithal, it's a lot of capital, not just money capital, political capital, and a lot of other things.
Yeah.
Can you explain the process?
Well, I will look to Neil for more info, but I do know, I mean, a clear sort of initial complicating factor, I think, is the fact that you have the intersection of town and state-run roads, which has always been a challenge there and elsewhere in town. But Neil, can you?
Sure, I think it would go into our capital plan and decisions would be made where it ranks compared to all the other capital needs that we have. And then once it sort of gets there, you figure out how you're going to fund this. Would this be funds going in a capital reserve over time to start to pay for this? Would there be grant funding? Would you bond to do this all at once? And you sort of figure that out and put your timeline together. And then the key is all the people you have to work with to pull it all together. The abutters, everybody involved in the town. I know you've met with town staff, some and
Sure.
gotten input from them. That it would be a lot more of that type of thing, as well as working with NHDOT as to how this all fit into their project. They generally are relatively supportive for anything they don't have to pay for.
Right, that's a good point.
Yes.
I think this one in particular would be really interesting because I know, I mean, it feels like this section of Kentucky has been floating around DOT's 10-year plan for a while now, waiting for something to kind of consolidate. So working with the DOT would probably be pretty important to figure out how this maps into what they're doing or not doing.
And I should add, we would consult and probably work with Central New Hampshire Regional Planning, not just because Craig's
Yes.
here, but they are generally involved in projects like this.
Mhm.
Have, in your analysis, have you looked at what it would mean for traffic flow during construction?
So that's a little bit where the phasing plan comes in. In what order do you close this lane or that lane? And when do we build this sidewalk or this curb? I personally have had the opportunity to work through a couple internships back home in New York. One of which this summer is actually very similar to this project, where they turned an existing three-way stoplight intersection to a roundabout without interrupting traffic flow through the intersection. So there are ways to do it. And that is where Chuck's expertise and a lot of the example plans he's given us from projects in Jaffrey, I think, for example, where this has been done professionally and laid out for us as kind of a template, will help us through coming up with a hypothetical plan for this.
Yeah, because I'm just thinking during school times particularly, it's.
Yes.
Fair time too.
We don't even want to think about that.
For the fair.
Yes, tight schedule. Yeah.
Awesome.
All right.
Thank you guys very much.
Thank you. We
Guys,
appreciate it.
Awesome. Good luck and thank you. Thank you.
Hi, we're ahead of schedule. Are we good for our next public appointment? I don't know who's here for the main South Hop Old Hennegar intersection.
I know Craig's here. You want to go? Yeah, I don't,
Is he the
do you
only?
know of anyone else?
I don't think anyone else is coming.
I think all of
So,
us.
Yeah.
All right.
Here that were involved in that.
Our engineer is coming, probably looking at the agenda.
Oh,
Oh, okay.
But
We can,
I think we have some questions for him, we're done, but.
okay. If you're good to start, we can.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't know if I was presenting or not, I'm not sure how much background information you have, but.
I'm happy to walk through it.
Yeah, I'll sit here and if you.
Yeah.
this has been the most involved. Great, for the longest.
To be clear, this is Jeff's idea.
Sounds right.
So this is a continuation off of, it's a continuation off of the work done for the traffic calming trial at the intersection here. But really, this is a continuation off of about 3 decades worth of planning by the DOT and Hopkinton Village. So we were after the trial period, after the traffic calming trial period happened, we had the survey, we had responses here, and then the precinct also had a meeting about it and a vote at their town meeting or at the annual meeting. And then nothing happened because it is so much work would have to happen with the DOT, and the response was from DOT has been supportive, but also back to the funding question of how and who and how much. And so we were contacted by the DOT at the beginning of the year, or I think regional planning was contacted.
Yeah, they called me.
Yes.
So the DOT safety section, they're always looking for little safety improvements to make. Somebody happened to notice that this was on the paving schedule and said, oh, I think they were working on that. So they called me. So because of all the work you guys have done already, it was already on their radar. And so it's planned to be paved next year. And so the idea is, well, do we want to repave the whole thing as it is and all this excess pavement? Or do we want to try to see if we can, make an improvement as we go? So you guys did the legwork, which is great. Safety section noticed it and they're kind of stepping up.
Yeah. So what's happened so far is there's the plan from a long time ago, and then there's the plan that regional planning came up with, which you have copies of.
Yeah, well, yep, right. I have a couple copies if you want.
I'll just pass it on.
So this is a few years old. Our engineer's here, Mike's here. So he drew this up a few years back when we were talking about this a few years back. And this is kind of like a conceptual design of what the end product would be like. So what would happen next summer if we agree to it? The end product isn't going to be this big, beautiful thing. This is kind of what we're looking for in the end. But that's kind of giving you an idea of what we're going for. So that right turn slip ramp, the idea would be to remove that because you have that safety conflict at Briar Hill Road and when cars come flying around that corner. And there's a huge amount of excess pavement, that big pork chop island. And it, presents an opportunity for space for all of those other things in there, a little bit of green space. You could put in a sidewalk or a crosswalk, et cetera. So Neil was at this meeting too. And from what I understand is how this would work would be district maintenance would come in first and they would remove the excess pavement and they would make some improvements to that pork chop island. So they'd have to rearrange that T intersection to give it a little more room. So district would do some of that preliminary work to make it a T.
District meaning the state.
The state, right, which is kind of a big deal. I mean, they did not want to say yes, but I think because of the work that you guys have done and the safety opportunities that they're willing to do that. And then when paving would come in and when they paved it, they would not repave that slip ramp. And so I think that would leave, some work for the town to do to put in some grass or to make it nice or to phase in future work with crosswalks, sidewalks, et cetera.
And Dan was on this call too. He was part of those discussions.
So in terms of what would be different from this plan, because DOT made it pretty clear that they could come in and remove the asphalt and do the new layout, but they wouldn't really be able to do like the brick island or new curbing. And so basically it'd be a simplified version of this, very similar to what was done in the trial. And then we would put in grass. And then the precinct has also discussed this, and they do have a tree budget, and they'd be willing to help out by planting trees.
If you have any design questions, we do have Mike here who came up and he's happy to answer anything.
Let's mention that the bid goes out like next week, and so that's the time.
Yeah, so this isn't really a hard deadline, but the paving bid goes out, the paving schedule, the DOT paving schedule goes out to bid in a couple weeks. And if there were more of a clear intention that this is something the town want to go forward with, that might affect their bid, how the paving bid goes out. If you miss it, I don't think it's gonna kill the project, but I think it would be a good courtesy to have some sort of action if this is what you think you want to go forward with.
If we said yes to this now, and then for whatever reason, our plans changed, are we at all sort of on the hook or obligated for anything?
I don't think so. I think I would want to check with the paving schedule people first.
Yeah.
To make sure that if it might reduce their paving budget actually.
But we wouldn't be on the hook for that. Like,
Yeah.
I think if we had a strong recommendation now and then change that strongly in the future, I think DOT might get kind of upset about it, but there's nothing that would obligate us one way or the other. It's still up to DOT's.
Right, and at this stage, there's no financial exposure for the town.
No.
Yeah.
And really through the whole thing, our only exposure is probably putting in grass. And if the pavement was gone and that didn't happen.
And then
look
whatever.
horrible, but it wouldn't change the project.
And then it would be up to us to finance the remainder of any improvements that we wanted to see to this.
At some point, if sidewalks and
Yeah.
curbing and things like that, that would be a different project.
Uh-huh.
I think it's worth noting in terms of like notable changes to residents. When the trial happened, Ben Wilson and I were both pretty proactive about talking with people both on Briar Hill and then also the residents right on the intersection. There is kind of one driveway that changes pretty significantly across the street from the firehouse. That resident is actually very supportive of the change. He said it's very difficult. The school bus doesn't currently stop for their child because of the speed that people go through that intersection. And then they've also already talked to the post office about moving their mailboxes.
And we had very positive response from Briar Hill residents coming out of Briar Hill onto that road. It just changes. You don't have those cars flying through there. This line of sight is much better and the speed is much slower.
So those properties that have their driveway currently where this slip lane would go away, what's their new point of access?
So that's something that we're working on now. I just got approval to have Mike here today, which is awesome. So what he's going to be able to do for us is to delineate a little bit better how those driveways will work. So you guys will have an updated plan. We tried really hard to get it to you before the meeting, but
yeah,
like paving is happening, everything had to happen really quick. So we will have a plan that we can, bring to Neil to have the DOT review, to have you guys take another look at.
And the owners, right? And the owners, obviously.
And the owners, yep.
Yeah.
We definitely want to make sure that we connect with the people that we would like to connect with. Yes.
It's really two driveways. It's the last house kind of on Main Street. And their driveway probably would just be extended. And I think that's who Thomas was talking about that favored that.
Yep.
And then it's the real estate office driveway at the other end. There's no driveways in between.
Yep. So when we did the trial, there was actually only one driveway that did move, and it was that one long driveway, and it just extended right out to the road.
Okay, I remember now looking at the overhead. So yeah, thank you.
So the real estate office, that they don't have any objections.
We didn't hear any objections. Ben reached out to him and didn't hear any objections back.
Is there any downside if we were to say yes at this point? Or we're supportive of it, let's say?
I think the downside is just you have to make sure that it kind of looks nice, because I think the district, they're gonna remove the pavement and set it up to do the paving, but I don't think they've committed to, like Neil said, the loam and seed.
Mhm.
So we need to be ready to do that.
I think so.
Yeah.
And they're also not going to be doing any new work to the drainage. And I think because they've agreed to make this change, it's still going to be on the state to make sure that works. But, that might be a detail going forward to make sure that we understand what everybody's responsibilities are with that. And then the seating is going to fix that. And I don't know, Mike, if you have anything else that you can think of in your experience doing this. Sorry to put you on the spot, but you know more about this stuff, don't you? No, you're right on.
You're correct about the driveways, basically both driveways just extend out to where the new edge of the road is, not like they did before. As far as the drainage goes, there are a couple of catch basins inside those two driveways that are a little awkward, but I think we can just put like a little paved waterway to them to get them to work in the interim. I don't think the drainage would be a big problem. Our DOT didn't commit to doing any of that either, so we'll try to use those two existing catch basins that are right in between those two driveways we're talking about. But they're close to the driveway, so if we pave the driveways, water can kind of run down there and into the catch basin, so it shouldn't be a problem. But we'll check more on that and get back to you once we have more information.
So I think, from what I understand for our conversation with DOT, is they wanted approval of the concept.
Mhm.
And we can continue working on the details of that concept. And, whatever level of comfort, you have with going forward, you can put that on whatever motion you might want to put forward. There's always details to be worked out, but it sounds to me like DOT is supportive of trying to make this happen.
Okay.
And-
Jeff, do you have any questions or thoughts? Since it was your idea.
I don't have any questions. I won't be able to vote either way because I can't see anything and sort of understand what we're talking about, but I can't see it.
Okay. All right, I mean, it seems like this
I will
is something we should.
make a motion to approve this concept, subject to us revisiting this as the details continue to get worked out.
I'll second.
I think that's sufficient for DOT's purposes. We approve it conceptually.
I think so. If I were you, it's very hard without having an actual plan in your hands to make anything much more firm than that.
Yeah.
But I think that's what they'll be happy with that. And if it needs to be on a further agenda in the coming months, then I'll talk to Neil.
Okay, so we can vote then. So Stephen,
Yes.
Ken?
Yes.
I'm a yes.
Yes.
Jeff, I don't know if you want to vote or not.
Abstain.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you very much for this.
Thanks so much for coming.
Thank you.
Exciting.
Yeah. Thanks for all the hard work.
Yeah.
Is it kind of nice to talk about roads instead of budgets?
As long as it's.
Well, I don't think we've ever talked about roads without talking about budgets, so that's refreshing.
State Proactively willing to.
I know.
What's next on the agenda? Budgets.
Oh, no, pump station.
All right, so old business. We have up first the pump station.
Sure. Can we go back to roads?
Oh, yeah.
So as you're aware, we've talked about it the last, at last meeting. We do have, a pipe that's starting to leak in the pump station. We're getting, quotes now. It looks like the cost is going to be, depending on which option, between 70 and 100,000. We do have that money in the capital reserve. We have been putting money in there for equipment and stuff, and this is exactly why it's in there. That fund originally was just for sludge removal, and probably, I would say 5 years ago, but maybe it was 10 years ago, the purpose got changed to be able to be available in cases like this. So largely, it will depend which model is used to do this. Either the pipe has to be drained and pumped, and or a valve needs to be put in, sort of inserted up above. So I would guess at the next meeting, probably Dave will be here to explain that, and he's working through those numbers and figuring out the options and can present those, so. I think there's going to be digging, of course, there's going to be digging, but that's where that's at.
And Neil, is that the, tied into the CIP, the generator replacement at the pump station?
It is, well, it's in there. This is not a part, this is an emergency type fix, so it's not really part of the plan, but yes, the generator can be done at the same time, which is part of the plan.
Mhm.
So just a reminder that all the septage from homes is gravity fed down to Riverway Park, and then it's pumped back up to the sewer lagoons on Public Works Road.
We should have stuck to just roads.
I know. I know. I do want to thank David White, who is our wastewater superintendent. He always feels bad when he comes in because he generally doesn't bring great news. But I really appreciate that, how much I've learned from him in the last year. He's been here just over a year, just a week or two over a year now. And he has really helped us substantially and brought us along. And I think and Dan feels the same way. We're much more aware of where we're at and what we're dealing with. The asset management study is also going, so we'll have more of that. And this gives us the opportunity to have a good plan together, so we're not dealing with emergencies in the future.
All right, should we move on to the CIP committee final recommendation?
Sure. So really they supported leaving in the 80,000 you added to recreation facilities, and they adjusted the bathroom amount available to 200,000 from 250. Dan is very comfortable with that. Everybody's comfortable with that. And they're happy with that. So they voted and recommended that. That was really the only changes in there. There were a few corrections or minor things, but nothing major. That was the major thing they talked about. They'll also be meeting in the spring and beginning their work for next year and ongoing. So I think that's going to be very good.
I'm not sure where it fits under the old business, but just a question or a suggestion on what I call the bingo sheet, the tax rate estimation page. The line that's fund balance use. If you look at that line, the percent change is 0, which is not the case, no matter how you want to look at it.
We can correct that. My guess is there was probably there's no formula in there. Probably it was divided by 0 or something, and we took it out. So we'll do that.
And whether, I don't know, a footnote might be worthwhile that the fund balance approved was actually 360, not 200. We used 200, as I understand it. But the column says approved.
DRA approved.
Town meeting, what was presented at town meeting, I guess is.
Town meeting doesn't approve a fund balance, but the reason you have to have here what the actuals were in order to do a comparison. If you put in what you thought they might be, you don't come to the 487 tax rate at the bottom. Okay, I'm showing it good.
I'm fine with everything except the percentage in the column. It's,
We'll fix
if
that.
people, you know, and I guess I can just respond if people ask at, one of the meetings coming up.
All right. So move on to the 10-year forecast.
Sure, I think Ken was the one that asked for this. To look at different fund balances. The problem you always run into is if you add fund balance in any year, then you're just moving. You have to do it in all the years in order to not have a bump somewhere. Does that make sense? So it's hard to, this is as you approved it last time. And it does show like a 5 and a 4.94, which is probably way too high. So there probably will be more fund balance, so you could put that in here, but then you end up showing higher further out.
Yeah,
So I wasn't sure what you wanted to do.
yeah. Historically, I think we've had in addition to fund balance generated each year, and that is not reflected here. And whether it's appropriate to reflect here or just if the question is asked, like I said at the budget committee, you know, try to explain it then that whereas Neil's numbers show around 5%, there's this other fund source that historically we would have. We don't know if we'll have it in future years. You know, we can certainly leave it the way it is, and that's fine, and I can endeavor to explain it.
And this is clearly just an estimate because we use percentage increases all the way across the board and things like that. So,
On the estimated town valuation, you have it just increasing at 0.5% every year.
yes.
Except this year.
For these purposes, should that be higher?
I don't think, well,
Because like 20-year average is like 6%. It'll make it'll make a lot of those numbers go negative. So this is one of the
it is, yeah.
So like the amount to be raised by taxes, the percent change will be the same, but an estimated tax rate, those should be negative. Or you'd expect them to be negative. So, and the only reason why they're not is because we're only using a 0.5% valuation rate, but that's like our normal year to year in between valuations, but then we have the valuation bumps that then show like
this doesn't take into consideration the 5-year reval,
right,
which will jump it.
right.
And we've used the 0.5% for, I don't know, for a number of years anyway.
No, I know we use the 0.5% in between the valuation years, and then the valuation shows a big jump. We use the 0.5% just because there is no revaluation in between those years. So the 0.5% represents added properties or improvements to properties. It doesn't represent increase in valuation. And that's why the equity ratio exists, because you need to take that into account when you do like statewide stuff. So like if you looked at a longer term 10-year plan, you can't use the 0.5%. You have to use something closer to the bumps from the 4-year revaluations. And like it doesn't,
except you don't have any idea what the bump in the valuation is. You know, maybe this year it was 70%, but maybe 10 years ago it was 0 or negative.
right? That's what I'm saying. You have to use like a historical, like in the same way that like when you use like an inflation index, you use like a longer term, like 20 to 30 to 40-year index. Where like this, you'd have to do the same thing. All I'm trying to say is that the estimated tax rate changes are likely to be very wrong. But it doesn't really matter because it's like at the tax rate. It's nonsense.
This in part was certainly something that the Budget Committee was very interested in because they're concerns about the impact of the two bonds that we'll be requesting now and how that plays out.
But even when you're going through the process with the budget committee and a reval year, the increase in valuation, does it track the actual reval data, or is it the same half percentage point increase from the prior year?
But at the end of the day, it should be, the same regardless of the valuation. It would be the amount to be raised by taxes. It needed to be raised.
Right, that's why it doesn't really matter because the only thing the tax rate is doing is deciding on the distribution of where the money's coming from. It doesn't actually have any impact. But you just can't use that number there. Like you can't look at that estimated tax rate change as anything. Because really the only the actual thing to look at for changes is the amount to be raised. And the tax rate is just a distribution value.
Yeah. Okay.
That is true.
You good on that, Ken?
Yeah, I don't like the 5%, but I totally understand them and appreciate what was done, and I'll explain them as much as I can.
Yeah, and well, there's a lot of unknowns, but my assumption would be that the increase would be lower than that in those years because there'd be either there's fund balance or there's other things that would end up happening, but we don't know what those are, so it's hard to.
And future boards, if they're looking at a 5% increase or something, they may say, well, there's something else that has to get pushed off.
Mm-hmm. We move on to warrant review.
So you have the warrant. I don't think there are any changes since last time. We're pretty much set. The deadline for petition warrant articles is Tuesday. Not tomorrow, but next Tuesday, the 4th. So we'll see if anything else comes in between now and then.
Right.
I probably should have noticed this and asked the question previously, Neil. On Article 5, the bond for the Camerang, it says may include principal forgiveness in amount up to $100,000. I thought it was 100,000, period.
We can an amount of we can change that.
Okay, good.
I know we're going through all this and it's going to cost us $20,000.
I know it's a shame we have to go through it for that one.
Is there any update on the Bates building?
No, Sabrina, were you going to check your notes?
About the charitable.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, I did find those. I don't think I have it. Because the question was what we looked at the time, right? Isn't that what we talked about? And whether we sold it, if we split like the proceeds and some of it went to the town library, if they thought that would be legit, and they did.
I just
So,
wanted to make sure there wasn't any direction from them on this question on leasing it
This didn't-
below market value.
so I'm happy, I don't know anyone there anymore, but I'm happy to try to contact someone, but my sense is that because it would not be a sale, they wouldn't be involved in approving it. Like, they just wouldn't be involved in it.
Right. I mean, I think that probably is true. I just,
And based on our conversation, I mean, I don't know who's there anymore, but based on our conversation, which was now like 5 years ago, or
Yeah,
maybe more,
yeah,
it was
it was a
before
while.
COVID. But I do remember, like, we talked a lot about sort of like the spirit of how that was donated to the town, and I would imagine that we have a strong argument if it's used for something like, Two Villages Art, a nonprofit that's there for like the good of the community.
okay.
I think that's well within like the spirit of how it was donated. That's just my hunch from that conversation.
Yeah, no, I'm okay with that. I think you're right, Brittany.
So were we not gonna put the sale on here, though?
You didn't
Lease,
at this point.
okay. I thought we had talked about that.
Well, I thought we were gonna see if there was any further conversation to be had.
I think there could be.
We have one more meeting before we have to,
You do.
can we
Chat with them,
circle back and see if we,
should add that.
yeah. You want to add that or not?
I mean, even if we didn't have a plan, it's really just revisiting whether we can have the authority.
Yeah.
Luis, do you have a
Oh,
comment
just
or
a
question?
clarifying question of what you guys are talking about. Are you revisiting possibility of selling the base building?
Yes, so we currently have, I mean, I would say it's very preliminary because this is something we've sort of been talking about on and off over the last couple of years, but currently we have a warrant article around a longer term lease.
Mhm.
But we have discussed selling it. It's just not in our draft warrant right now. So yes, I think that's something we'll definitely revisit. Sort of conceptually, I don't know if that will actually make it on the final draft.
I think one thing we need to make sure we have a clear plan for the archives.
Yes.
Because I think that's probably one of the biggest, which I remember that being one of the biggest concerns. So we need to be clear about what we would do and where those
Yeah.
would go. And
Didn't we have to subdivide something too? Wasn't there something weird?
there
with
is,
the lot? Yeah.
we would
okay.
need to do a subdivision.
Okay, so maybe. Well, all these conversations are blending since we've been having them for like 7 years, but to go back and recall what the details were on that. Because maybe there was a reason why we abandoned that and stuck with the longer term lease. But I feel like that was over the summer that we talked about this. Anyway, okay, so we can revisit and decide if we want to add selling it. Okay, anything else in the draft?
Can I ask a
Warrant?
question on the warrant?
Yeah,
On the, sorry, the, Septage Lagoon, one, I think I had mentioned this about the forgivable amount. I think it's important to include the, similar to the asset management. The copy that's in the supporting materials folder does not state on the warrant that there's a forgivable portion for the septage lagoon closure as well. And I think that's important for people to know.
So you mean that the actual cost is 4.5 million, out of which 10% basically is
Right.
going to be.
Right. Similar to the one down below where the forgivable amount is
100,000 on the 120. Just,
I think
oh, no.
Yeah, because this
that's-
wording came from them, so I can look, I think leaving it broader may be better the way it is.
Okay.
Certainly, that's part of the presentation.
Yeah, oh, for sure. But, okay. I think it's important for people to know that.
Thank you. Anything else on the warrant?
Good.
All right, we'll move on to the Energy Committee charge update.
You have the draft. This incorporated everything you talked about last time. It adds to serve as the electric aggregation committee for the town and shall advise the select board on community power issues. So that section is new. And oversight and anticipated areas is oversight of Hopkinton community power.
I'm certainly happy with those two, Neil. The number of members, you reduced it from 7 to 6. And I think my preference is to keep it at 7 as well as a select board member.
Is it 6 + 1?
It originally was, and then there were some extra people, so it went up to 7. Generally, you try to keep the odd number on the committee. That was the only thing behind that.
The committee lately has been having 100% attendance. So the quorum issue didn't seem to be relevant. And if, just speaking for myself, I would like to stay on the committee. There are 6 people that are on the committee now that would like to stay on the committee. So I'd like to keep it at, make it 7. So there isn't an issue there.
It'll just be the democratic process to break any ties.
If necessary, sure.
Yeah.
Does the electric aggregation committee have any specific language tie-ins to the actual community power agreement? Like, does this give them the ability to actually do the rate setting? Or is that?
They don't have that at you voted Mark and Ken as representatives to the coalition. So that's the input that goes to them.
The coalition is what sets the rates. If in the future, the Energy Committee thought, well, maybe the town should go to a higher renewable rate, which is at a higher rate, that would have to come to the select board and may or may not have to actually go to town meeting.
No, so that's what I'm asking is because like the terminology around serve as the electric aggregation committee, that doesn't have any specific tie-in to something that's in the agreement with.
It does not.
Okay.
It does have tie into the statute though. So that's why it's not serve as the community power committee. Those words are directly out of the statute.
So what does the statute give the electric aggregation committee the ability to do?
Kind of what they've already done.
Right,
and make recommendations.
We felt that the committee had met its charge because the coalition or Hopkinton Community Power is up and running now.
So then do we still need an electric aggregation committee?
No. That's why we're rolling it into the energy.
I believe by statute, you do in order to be in community power, which is why they service that.
But they don't and can't do anything.
There's no authority it all gets recommended back to the select board.
Okay. Okay. The only, and the reason why I just want to be really careful about it is because there's a lot of funky things that can happen with community power. And this is something I wanted to be really careful about when we were deciding how and who the authority goes to. And so if there's a specific language that ties back to a statute, I just want to be very careful about what that means.
Yeah, the select board retains all the authority.
Yeah.
6, 7.
Oh,
I'll make a motion, we approve it, but with 7.
You have to recuse yourself if it's appointing yourself.
Oh, well, it's not appointing myself yet. I'm still the select board representative there.
I'm all second.
okay. Any discussion on 6 versus 7?
I'm fine with 6.
Okay. All right, let's vote.
You're fine with what?
7 or 6? You said,
I said 6. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. 7.
okay.
Yeah.
It's going to be a tie
Apologize,
vote,
yeah.
isn't it?
All right, Stephen.
Yes.
Ken, are
Yes.
you voting? Okay.
No,
I'll vote yes.
if you feel I should abstain, I'll abstain.
I trust your judgment, Ken. All right, Thomas.
Yes.
I don't know if Jeff is still with us. No, he's not. Okay. Unanimous.
You don't need to do roll call anymore.
That's right. He's gone. Okay.
So you voted, did you vote on the whole thing as amended or did
Changing
you?
it to 7.
Okay. Now do you need to vote on the whole thing? Or was that? part of
Oh.
it?
That was part of it. Voted to approve it
Got it.
with the change.
Yeah, we were voting for all of it with
Got
that
With the
change.
amendment.
Yeah.
I'm sure
Okay,
that.
sorry, that
I
was
just got confused.
clear as mud for you, Neil. Okay.
One thing I want to ask is, as Thomas mentioned, or Neil mentioned, Mark Zankel and myself are sort of the representatives to the coalition with Neil as the backup person, let's say. Want to keep that maybe through town meeting and then see if one of the new select board members would like to be the liaison or the backup.
Mm-hmm.
That's a good idea.
That sounds good. Okay. We have one item under new business, Clement Hill Road land.
Sure. So you have information in your packet. Clement Hill, at the corner of Clement Hill and Pine Street. We've discussed this before and there was going to be a subdivision. That subdivision was done away with. As part of the subdivision, a piece of that land was deeded to the town. The deed has no restrictions, the deed's in the packet. And it is surrounded by the property that's owned there. The property owner of that property has approached the town, willing to buy it and merge it and buy it at a fair market value done by a certified appraiser. And I couldn't find anything that would prevent anything connected to that specific land that would prevent that from happening. But it would require town meeting vote to give you the authority to sell that property.
We don't have 4114A. We have a weird sort of.
So 4114A was passed but amended to give the authority to purchase but not sell.
That's right. And that, you said it was part of a subdivision plan?
Yes, and that subdivision, the subdivision plans in there, and I couldn't find any restrictions as part of that. There are some conservation.
Do we need to revoke the subdivision plan?
It's
So-
already been the plan itself.
Yeah.
The subdivision itself has been done away with. And all those,
I don't know, I don't know if keeping the plan alive without revoking it puts some sort of cloud on the title.
on the
Kind
title of
I
that.
don't know, but I'm asking.
Do you know if the owner of lot 107 has any interest?
I don't know why it's in your packet, isn't it?
Do we know why it was deeded to the
I
town?
know, that's what I was trying.
It was kind of common practice when they did subdivisions to take like one of the lots or one of the areas or a wet part and deed
Open
it to the
space or
town.
something.
I'm not a huge fan of that myself. I'd rather see it owned by the property owners with conservation easements or something, but that's how it was often done.
Hmm.
And for some reason, the map is not pulling up. So I don't know why.
Yeah, I mean, to Ken's question, I think if we're open to conveying this, we probably ought to see if any of the other owners, looks like there's, other than the one that wrote the letter, looks like there's two other owners that the property abuts,
Two?
106, 107, and then
One-
99.
Well, but what I'm looking at, 106 is not about it. Just 107.
Oh, you're right. I'm sorry. You're right, Ken. Yep. Just 107.
So I guess the question at this point, there may be details. Should we add a warrant to give you the authority to sell it? And then we'll start putting all the pieces together to make, doesn't necessarily have to be to that owner.
Mhm.
Well, is there any town conservation land anywhere else in this immediate area?
No, there's no access for them to
Yeah.
check it. We could certainly absolutely check with the Conservation Commission to see if they have any issues.
I
mean,
Myron had a
I'm
question.
fine having a warrant or an article added, but I guess would want to sort of revisit this with a little more information before we sign the warrant. Because maybe we'll feel like we're not ready to put it on the warrant yet. Or there's a reason not to. I don't know.
Byron, did you have a question or comment?
Yeah, I was just gonna mention, you should talk to the Conservation Commission, because I think part of that subdivision, there was an area that it had, I don't forget the name of it, maybe a black spruce, it's kind of rare, that the Conservation Commission wanted to preserve that area. I don't know if this is that.
I think this is some of it, and certainly a conservation easement can be on it.
Okay. All right. Yeah, so we can start with the Conservation Commission on this.
Circle back.
About a
again.
warrant article.
More information on that. And there actually was one other piece that we received a similar request. This is on. So this is a piece of property on the Bassett Mill Road, but on the other side of Sugar Hill. This map is very misleading because it looks like there's this road there and there are trees growing in this area. There is no road there, but the town does own lot 8. It was a trade when Mr. French wanted a road thrown up or discontinued, totally discontinued. And so there's no deed restrictions or anything in there. This piece, the abutter wanted to buy, but I think this does have access. It's about 231 feet in on that class 6 road. So I don't believe this is landlocked. It's on a class 6 road. So I would think it would go to auction or whatever to whoever. But I wanted to get back to the abutter who had some interest. And if that's something you're interested in adding on there and doing more research.
That's a class 6.
It is a class 6. It's a class 6 with trees in it. Literally, you would not know.
No,
it's
I know.
there.
I just, I tried very hard to find all the class 6. And I don't remember that.
I remember that.
Bassett Mill
Again, so you can have time to find it.
I gotta
in
find this.
in at town meeting in 1991 was resolved by the town of Hopkinton and town meeting convened that the town vote to accept the conveyance by Mr. Robert L.V. French to the town of 9.7 acres of land on Old Bassett Mill Road off of Sugar Hill Road and abutting land of the United States government and the Elmbrook Marsh in exchange for the discontinuance and forfeiture of all rights the town may have for a portion of back road, so-called, or class 6 road, and its portion between Stumpfield and Old Holmes Road. So they did that. I went and looked, and there was a vote to change Old Bassett Mill Road subject to gates and bars, but there was nothing on this portion to discontinue it in the file that we could find.
Is lot 55 that federal government?
It is.
Bassett Mill Road.
Right.
Okay, great. It's on the list.
Did you find it?
I did.
Good work.
Thomas.
Thank you. I
It's a-
just don't remember this one at all. This is
I
fascinating.
think you probably looked at Bassett. Let's see.
No,
Bassett Mill Road went from here all the way to Mill Road. And Mill Road is at exit 6. It used to go all the way through. So there's
Yeah. What was the reference to back road?
back, the reference was to Back Road, which
Stumpfield and Old Homes Road.
Old Homes, which is further down.
This is all coming back. It's a very substantial and actually it's a pretty good class 6 road on the other side. We never looked at it on the north side.
Yeah, you can't.
It just doesn't
make
exist on
sense
the
there.
north side.
So was any of 8 in floodplain area?
I don't believe so, because there's buildings on 7.
Yeah, it's
and
not in the floodplain map. I mean, like a little strip of it,
Mhm.
little strip of it is, but the majority of it's not.
So do you want the same thing,
I
get
would
more information?
Include that on our due diligence list. Maybe an article.
Louise, do you have a comment?
Kind of a question, with this, the person who has expressed interest in purchasing this land, is this gonna, for potential development or like, just, to put the rest of this property in current use, or what is the driving point behind wanting to purchase the?
That I don't know, but it's not a landlocked piece, so it would go out to bid and
Also, it's not a particular person wanting,
it is a particular person that was interested, but I think
which is.
in this case, it would go out either by sealed bid coming in or auction as part of an auction or something, so.
So who, and sorry, is there a specific person inquiring about it or?
There was one of the abutters who's interested in it. And I think they were under the impression it was a landlocked piece, and it is not a landlocked piece because it's on a class 6 road.
Hmm.
A class 6 road, which is actually
Impassable.
231 feet from less than 300 feet less than.
It kind of falls right into that category of.
Yeah.
Yeah, great.
That's why I measured and put that in
Mhm.
the 231.
Yeah, I'd be interested to know if this is on the Conservation Committee's radar.
Yeah.
Yeah, I haven't really even heard it referenced before. It's kind of an interesting deal.
Hmm.
All right, so we'll do more research on both of those.
Okay.
Bring potential warrant articles with the information, and then you can decide from there.
All right, thank you. Okay, that brings us to town administrator update.
Sure. So the filing period ends Friday. We do have races for both select board and budget committee. There's also a race for school board so far. There are still some positions that no one has signed up for. You have what's pretty close to the end financials, end of 2024 financials. So those are in there. We're getting pretty close to the end. Most everything has been done. We really ended the year where we expected to. That was good. On March 4th at 2 p.m., which is a Tuesday, I believe, I'll do Cookies with Cass again at the library. The Friends of the Library sponsor that every year, which is always good. 2 weeks from tonight is February 10th. And we have public hearings on the 3 bonds, so we probably want to talk a little bit about that. And then the 18th is the SB2 hearing, which we already have slides for, and I think the last 2 years Stephen has done that. So I don't think we'll have to do much, but just to be prepped for those two.
What's the date for that? The 10th?
The 10th are the bond hearings. So most of the information that's come in on the bonds is really about the process and the requirements. And so we've been working on and have pretty close to having done a whole pamphlet which covers all of that. And we've been putting together slides for that. So I don't know how you want to present that.
Is that what you were talking about earlier, Ken? Like trying to split it, or were you talking about?
Yes. The thought was, or my thought was that Sabrina would do the need for it, let's say, and I would talk about the finance side of it.
I mean, I don't feel like I have any sort of, like, this isn't really my issue. Is there a reason you think
I'm happy to present
Okay.
at the hearing,
Okay.
which will prep whoever's doing town meeting, because
True.
if that's helpful, we'll put together the process and go through it all. Beverly and I have worked together a lot on this and know all this and have been at all the
Okay.
meetings. So I think if we put it all together, that might be the easiest.
Okay.
I'd be happy with that.
So
Super helpful. Thank you. So Stephen, the SB2 hearings on February 18th, which is a Tuesday because Monday is President's Day.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's all right.
And Neil, you were talking for all 3 bonds.
They're all DS ones. We can lump them all.
Okay.
We won't lump them all together, but we can put the presentation together for that.
Mhm.
And then that will be before, and then you can see the presentation and decide who wants to present it at town meeting at that meeting.
You also have to decide for the budget committee presentation, to what extent that the presentation for the bonds would be done a short summary as I had done months ago, or is much more detailed. I'd prefer a short summary, but, and then questions.
Are you talking about for the budget committee public hearing?
Yes.
Which is 2 days after
Is February 12th?
is February
There's
12th.
a lot of meetings coming up.
It's a big, it's
Yeah.
gonna be very exciting.
Yes.
Volunteer?
No. Just an.
Sounded like Stephen was volunteering to take it on.
I thought he was.
Not my memory.
Okay.
Based on the questions that were asked after the budget committee, maybe we can do a hybrid of adding a little more information. We can have the pamphlet to hand out and sort of look at it that way, because I don't think you want the whole big presentation on. It's not the bond hearings on those, it's really the budget hearing with
Mhm.
4 budgets. So that's going to be, that's a long night anyways.
Yeah, it is.
No, no, I was thinking whether it just do the shorter presentation as I did, in December, or something a bit longer than that. But if you have the pamphlet available, I think that would be very helpful.
That's all I have on my list. Just more than enough.
Ken, you have any questions?
No, I've been interrupting regularly.
Okay, good. Okay, that brings us to the public forum. Anyone would like to speak, you can raise your hand online. Byron, come on up so the mic can pick you up. It almost picks up from there, but not quite.
Yeah, the Hopkinton intersection here. Who's responsible for paying for anything that's done in the green space area, the Hopkinton Village Precinct or the town of Hopkinton?
I think Thomas mentioned the precinct has money for trees.
So, yeah, so right now there's no responsibility for anything. The only thing that's gonna happen is the DOT will come, do the intersection change. And then they'll leave it there. And so whoever can. It sounds like if the town has the ability to put grass down, the precinct has discussed putting in other things. The precinct has voted in the last 2 years into their budget. They've started to put in a budget for trees, to plant more trees along Main Street. And that hasn't actually been used the last 2 years. So it was brought up that this might be a good time to start using that. But other than that, I don't think there's any plan for it.
Okay. And another thing about that spot, it's right in the center of the historic town of Hopkinton. And I think it's a good opportunity to make it something really beautiful and unique. And I don't know if that can be done quickly, cheaply. I think what could be done is just do the minimum, get some grass on there, then find a good plan and then raise the money for donations, whatever, and then you can do it right instead of doing it. Well, this is the best we can do.
Yeah,
It's a suggestion.
No, I absolutely agree. And that was kind of brought up too in the initial conversation with DOT, which was kind of like, especially going back to the initial concept layout by Central Regional Planning, there was a lot of stuff. It was kind of like the one thing that has to happen with DOT is the actual pavement portion.
Yeah.
And then after that, there's a lot of options. And it could be private funding, it could be from the town, it could be from the precinct. There's a lot of different ways it could happen. And I think you're right. I think there's a good plan should be put together. And there's plenty of time for that once kind of like the initial change is made. And then
Yeah, okay.
and then there's
just rush in and plant some trees.
no.
Okay, good.
Really just grass.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah, I was kind of thinking, from what I understood, it's basically gonna be stabilized
Right.
after the work is done,
Yeah.
and then we'll hit pause
good.
and then sort of figure out, because that's a real opportunity. I agree with you to do something really unique and really beneficial for the community. And we don't want to rush that and make sure we get it right.
And on the fire station intersection, are you I don't know if you guys are aware, but the town already had spent, I don't know, 50,000-60,000 to have that intersection and the village intersection looked at and plans drawn up by Vollmer Associates. And, you know, they did a lot of the engineering, I believe, and all that data should be somewhere. And they had proposed a roundabout in front of the fire station also. And did, you know, they did the drawings and everything else. So I don't know if that's still here in the town or if you'd have to pay Vollmer to get another copy.
Yeah, I think that was in there. They did conceptual drawings.
Yeah.
Yeah, when they
But-
did.
They didn't do any
As part of
engineering,
I don't believe so.
grades and all that stuff. I know they were talking with the state and everything.
Yeah, I don't think they got that far.
So do you still have those plans?
We do.
Oh, good. Okay. That's it. That's all I can remember. So
Right.
what do you do?
Thank you.
Anyone online? Okay. All right, we will close that and anyone have anything for other? All right, we have one non-public, so I think we'll go into non-public. Afterwards, we will adjourn and not conduct any other business. And thank you to everyone who attended and was with us online as well. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right, thank you, guys.
Good night.